7.8 is solving problems using quadratic models. Example 1. The engineers who designed the Coal River Bridge on the Alaska Highway in BC used a supporting arc with twin metal arcs. The function that describes the arch is h of x, or like we've talked about, that can be replaced with y, equals negative 0.00506 times x squared plus 0.499015x, where h of x, or our y, is the height in meters of the arch above the ice at any distance x in meters from one end of the bridge. Part A says determine the distance between the bases of the arches. So with a parabola, we know that that's going to be our x-intercepts, finding our distance in between the base of the arches. As this function is not a very simplified function to work with, we're just going to use graphing technology to graph this function and answer the questions that we need to from there. So enter this into your calculator. Y equals So I've entered in the equation into my graphing calculator, hit graph to see if I can see it. There's my parabola. Let's check what the window is here. So my x min is 0 all the way up to 100. So if you can't see anything, just change your window to have a very large x max so that you can see all the points. And we can see from my graph, if I go back, I couldn't quite see the top of my vertex. So I want to increase my y max, and I can even make my y min 0. So y min will be 0, y max was at 10, so let's say 20. I'm going to try to graph that. Much better. Okay, so it says determine the distance between the bases of the arches. So what we'll need to find then is what our x-intercepts are and find the distance in between them. So those are our zeros or our roots. So second function, calculate, and we want our zeros. So I need to be left bound of my first one. Oops. So yes, I'm left bound. Now I need to go right when my y is positive. Yes, guess. So that is 0 and 0, which we kind of could see, but just to verify, my x is 0, y is 0 and 0. Now let's find our other ones. So second function, calculate, go over to our other x-axis, other x-intercept, sorry, and find right side and left side. So I'm on the left side of it, and then when y is negative, I'll be on the right side. Guess 98.6, and my other one was 0. So our x-intercepts are 0 and 0 and 98.6 and 0. So the distance between would be the distance when I subtract them. 98.6 subtract 0, we know it'll just be 98.6. And we said the distance is in meters. So meters is our answer there. Part B says determine the max height of the arch to the nearest 10. So the max is going to be your highest point. This parabola is opening down, so that's going to be our vertex at the very, very top. So calculate max, which is our number 4. We're going to go to the left side of our max and the right side. Left bound, yes. Now right bound. Just moving it over slightly. We're on the right-hand side. Yes, we are. Guess. Yes. The max point is when my x is 49.3 and my y is 12.3. So that's my vertex. That's my highest point. When we're talking about the max height of the arc, that was our y value. So how high up is the max? That's only, our answer is only actually going to be our y value. So the max height is 12.3 meters. Example 2 says find two consecutive odd whole numbers such that the sum of their squares is 130. So this is actually taking it back to our first unit where we had some proving questions like this. So as a quick review, consecutive means in a row. So that's our x plus 1, x plus 2. But it says odd numbers. So if my x is going to be odd, then I have to add x plus 2 to get to my next odd number. Sum means I'm going to be adding. And it has to equal 130. So it's not equaling it to be an even or an odd like we were doing in chapter 1. We've actually have a set number that it has to equal. And the squares also, that's another important word. So consecutive odd is going to be x. I'm adding the next odd number, so x plus 2, but it's the sum of their squares. So we want to have both of those things squared. So x is our one whole number, x plus 2 is the next odd whole number. I'm adding, so I have the sum of their squares, and this needs to equal 130. So x squared will leave as is. X plus 2 squared will be FOIL. That's like writing it, if I do another color right above it, that's saying x plus 2 times x plus 2. So we would need to FOIL that. We do not want to just do x squared plus 2 squared, so x squared plus 4. It's not just the terms we see, it's that whole binomial, x plus 2 times itself. So that's where we need to FOIL. So x squared is this first one, then plus x times x is x squared, plus x times 2 is 2x, plus 2 times x is 2x, plus 2 times 2 is 4. And this needs to equal 130. Combining like terms, so x squared and x squared is 2x squared. 2x plus 2x is 4x plus 4. And if we want to factor and solve this, we need to subtract 130 from both sides so that we can actually solve for these values. Now it equals 0. 4 subtract 130 is negative 126 equals 0. Our first step is always to check if you have a GCF. So these are all even numbers, so I can factor out a 2 from all of this. 2x squared divided by 2 is just x squared. 4x squared divided by 2 is 2x. Negative 126 divided by 2 is negative 63. So I need to find two numbers that will multiply to negative 63 and add to 2. So I can think of factors of 63. I'm thinking 9 and 7 off the top of my head because those are two numbers away from each other. If it needs to be negative, one of those needs to be negative. The sum has to be a positive number, so I know my larger number is going to be positive. So 9 subtract 7 gives me 2. 9 times negative 7 gives me negative 63. Now we haven't actually answered that, so our actual solutions would be x equals the zeros of that. So x equals negative 9 and x equals 7. If we're looking at the top, consecutive odd, so they are both odd numbers, but then we get to this whole number. In our last section, we learned about different types of numbers. So real numbers are positive, negative, and fractions. Integers are positives and negatives, but whole numbers is 0 and up. So out of these two options, negative 9 cannot work because it's not a whole number. That's a negative value, and negatives are not part of our whole numbers. So x must be 7. So then, what are the two numbers? If x is 7, my next consecutive odd, let's plug that in. So if x is our whole number, then x plus 2 would be the next one, which is going to be 9. Let's just double check that that would equal 130. So our check, x squared, so 7 squared, plus 7 plus 2 squared is our 9 squared, needs to equal 30. 49 plus 81 equals, 130. 49 plus 81 is 120 plus 10. Yes, 130 equals 130. Therefore, we are correct.